So it's not the freshest news, but it's historic because something like this has not happened in 20 years. And what I'm alluding to, if you might have been living under a rock or you're just not a sports fan, is Miami Heat center Bam Adebayo scored 83 points against the Washington Wizards. And how he got those 83 points was quite interesting. I believe the figure was 43 free throw attempts from Bam Adebayo, which is the most in NBA history for any player in any game. And so Bam scores 83. He surpasses Kobe Bean Bryant, who scored those 81 points in 2006 against the Toronto Raptors. And Jalen Rose always gets shit on saying like, oh, Kobe scored 81 on his head. No, he scored it on the entire Toronto Raptors roster, including Chris Bosh. But nevertheless, Kobe ranked second all time when it came to all-time scoring for a single game, only behind Wilt Chamberlain, who hit 100, and we're still waiting and trying to find
allegedly.
That footage. Yeah, we're trying to, or we see all this footage from
find everything but
Wilt's decades ago
footage,
but we cannot find footage of Wilt's 100-point game. It is just basketball lore. Nevertheless, Bam Adebayo, as he put on Instagram, Wilt, me, Kobe. That's the discussion that Bam Adebayo, of all people, has entered himself into. And, good for him. But, Keith, just what was your reaction to Bam Adebayo scoring 83 points in a single game?
So I'm going to give you, for starters, where I was, how I found out, and then we can maybe get in. Oh, well, obviously, we'll get into the opinion on the legitimacy or the reaction. Like any red-blooded American male, I go on Twitter, and all I see is bam, bam, bam. And I'm thinking, who's getting beat up? What's going on? Because right now in our country, you just don't know an alien could fall out of the sky tomorrow and you'd be like, that's not surprising. But then I start seeing 80, 81, Kobe, and then Bam Adebayo, and it hits me like a ton of bricks. Like, oh, something's happening here. Like, there's something important that is going on. And thankfully, the NBA, as Mr. Adam Silver, you alluded to, wants us to get into the highlights portion of the league. It's a highlight league, so to speak. So you can go on Twitter, you can go on Facebook, Instagram. They had a live feed. So I get on just as he gets to the free throw line to pass Kobe's 81. And as he knocks down the first free throw, it hits me like a ton of bricks that somebody passed Kobe Bryant's 81-point game. I was about 13 years old when that happened in 2006 against the Toronto Raptors. But also, it was, yeah. But also,
I muted myself. I'm sorry, Keith. I just wanted to interject real quickly to say I was 8. Keith's the old head.
Yeah,
I was 8. But
well,
go ahead.
Hey, listen. Hey, I'm getting old. I understand. But also, it was the concept of like, not only is this happening, but of all people in the NBA, if you woke up that morning and you polled maybe 100 basketball fans and you said, okay, Kobe Bryant's 81-point game is going to get shattered today, who's it going to be? Some might say SGA. We'll get to him later on in the podcast, right? He's a pretty big scorer. Some might say Luka would have gone crazy. Maybe Wemby would have just had one of those nights where the Spurs said, here it is. But the fact that it was Bam of all people, and Bam is a good player, but he's never been recognized as a premier scorer, let alone a guy that can get you 50, 60. It was just surreal. As a basketball fan, I found myself very much enthralled in the moment. As a sports fan, for me, it was just unheard of because I never thought anybody would ever get close to Kobe's 81. Like Wilt's 100-point game, to the day I die, I'm a firm believer no one's ever touching that in a regular basketball game in the NBA. No one's coming close to that. But the fact that he got 83, it was just surprising. I thought it was great for the game, in my opinion. I thought it created a lot of discussion. Now, whether that's positive discussion or negative discussion, we'll get into that surely. But I thought it was great to see it happen, maybe because of the sheer unexpectedness, but also because of the type of player and the player it turned out to be. Now, how he got that is a little controversial, so to speak, but I was just perplexed watching it unfold. And And again, we live in a social media dominant world. And like, in your line of work and my line of work, the reactions are like that. And so the fact that we were all there to witness it, whether you watched it in person in Miami, whether you were online, like I was on social media following the whole thing, I thought it was wonderful for the sport, but also in general for sports itself because of the sheer unexpectedness and the fact that it just came out of right field or off the bench, so to speak, and just was some guy that you would never have thought in a million years when you woke up that day that he would have dropped 80, let alone 70, and broke the Beans record. It was unreal to me.
Yeah, it was truly unreal. And since you recalled the moment that you kind of followed along, and it was definitely one of those moments where you will always remember where you were when that happened and just how you reacted to it. Because I'll just quickly recall where I was. So I was covering a girls' high school basketball game for West Coast Preps, my full-time job. I was in Yuba City at Faith Christian High School, and I was covering the Lions go back-to-back as Northern California champions. They did it in Division 4 this year when they did it in Division 6 last year, and they were led by the great Lauren Harris, who is the all-time leader in three-pointers for high school basketball, girls' high school basketball in the country. She is the all-time leader in three-pointers, which is a crazy statistic by itself, just following up on Bam with 83 points. But the point is that I was covering that game, and I looked down. I got a notification from, I think, ESPN, and it said, Bam Adebayo has 70 points in the third quarter. And I was like, 70 in the third quarter? Like, is he going to break Will Walker? Exactly. I was like, there's just no way. Like, was that a typo? Is someone doing a prank? Like, it's not April 1st yet. Like, what is going on? And then the game concludes that I'm covering, and I got a text from my friend Willie, who just said, did you see Bam just scored 83 points? And I was like, my brain exploded, because when I saw that number, 83, it automatically made me think about Kobe. And mind you, I just kept seeing the alerts and the information, but I didn't see how it happened. Then afterwards, when I got home, threw on Sports Center as I'm getting my recap done, and I just saw how it kind of happened. So that's what I want to lead into, Keith, before we get to our next segment. Is I'm not really trying to diminish 83 points, because 83 points is remarkable. No one else has done it for a reason. I mean, we've seen Devin Booker, Luka all get in the 70s, but no one has gotten to 83. 43 free throws, that's a lot. It's a record too, but that isn't what bothers me so much as how that game transpired late. Because the Heat were up by 20, 30 points in the fourth quarter against the lowly Washington Wizards, who were tanking until they get, I mean, Trae Young has made an appearance for the Wizards, but they're basically tanking out the rest of this year until they can try to roll out Trae Young and Anthony Davis next season. But the Heat were up 20 to 30 points in the fourth quarter, and Bam is still in the game. I get it. He's chasing history. Leave him in the game. But how he got there, and Bam's even saying with 2 to 3 minutes left, don't foul, don't foul, don't foul. His teammates proceed to foul, and they're fouling the Wizards. And then the Wizards are fouling him. And I don't know if the Wizards were necessarily intentionally. Exactly. I don't know if the Wizards were intentionally fouling Bam Adebayo, but the Heat were intentionally fouling the Wizards up 20 to 30 points just to try and give Bam more time and stop the clock. Just like you see in a clutch time game when it's in crunch time and it's less than 5 points with less than 5 minutes left, and the teams start fouling each other just to preserve the game and to give yourself a chance to still win the game, making the other team make the free throws to ice the game. But just the way that the Miami Heat organization, and this is mainly the players, and a lot of the players that were in the game with him at that point are the players at the very end of the bench who don't get very much run. And he's the star of the team, you could say. I would say Bam Adebayo is the guy over Tyler Hero in that organization. And so they're vouching for their guy, but it just didn't feel like an organic 83 points. Once I saw how the game ended and concluded, the 43 free throws, we can put that aside. It is what it is. But how they got to those 43 free throws, specifically in the fourth quarter, that's where I kind of scratch my head and I'm like, congratulations, Bam, but Kobe's 81 was more impressive to me personally.
The problem I have with this subject, and I'm going to play devil's advocate, because what would a podcast be, Shaun, if everyone agreed with each other? That's just not society. We won't try to play it like that. When did we, as a society, maybe we've always been this way, and the internet has just, I guess, amplified that. When did we as a society look at great things and just say to ourselves, no, that's not legitimate? It feels like nowadays we have to always either not decredit, but like just, I can't think of the word off the top of my head, but it seems like every time something happens in sports now, there's a 5-minute grace period until we go, no, that's not impressive. And this is 2026, so everyone has an opinion, right? I'm going to play devil's advocate. When Kobe had 81, he had 26 at halftime. Went crazy in the third. I don't know what number it was, but a majority of Kobe's 81, that side of the argument we'll have is, well, Kobe was knocking down jumpers. He was getting in the rack. They weren't calling as many fouls. And I've seen highlights. I can't tell you exactly how he got it, but he did have like a stretch of like 4 straight three-pointers when he did knock the 81 down. So, yeah, no one's knocking Kobe's 81 when we're defending Bam's 83. My problem is, when do we start blaming the Washington Wizards? Clearly, you are not trying to win. That's already bad enough as it is because the NBA has like 5 or 8 teams. And granted, this is a loaded draft, so I get it. That's just how how the ping pong balls bounce. But you've got like 5 or 8 teams in this league, night in and night out, that I don't watch, but I know because I see the highlights, and so do you, who legitimately are not trying to win. They're not trying to play competitive basketball. So what you had was the perfect storm. First of all, if you go back and look at the tape, Bam's getting hacked. By halfway through the third, he's getting triple teamed. He's getting fronted. He's getting face guard. He was getting fouled. So if we're going to acknowledge that the man had like 43 free throws in breaking this record, then can we at least acknowledge he was legitimately being fouled? And I love what Eric Spoelstra said. First of all, don't talk about credibility when we were playing a team that had no interest in being competitive, had it set in their minds, likely from the time that the ball tipped off, they wanted to lose. And listen, as maybe this sounds as bad as it is, it's not going to help my argument. If I have a chance at history, and I know this is an outlier, I'm not getting anywhere close to this. He hasn't come close to 80 since then, right? So, yeah, I'm going to do everything I can to get that record. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And I think part of the general public can still acknowledge that Kobe's 81 is impressive, but also, I don't care who you are, Shaun. You're not scoring 50 points in a regulated NBA regular season game that counts as one of the total 82. You're not scoring 50 just by accident. You're not scoring 5 in the NBA by accident. So what you have is a bunch of people, I feel like, who are trying to legitimize or discredit, a man's accomplishments who wouldn't score 1 bucket in the NBA. And you're going to tell me that an 80-point game is not, I guess, for lack of a better term, an impressive achievement. But also, you have a bunch of people, and I like to be, let's say, a little delicate with this situation. R.I.P. Kobe. Kobe was a great scorer, great player. No one would ever deny that. But you'll always have that group of people who will defend Kobe till the day they die. And I understand that's their hero. That's their, GOAT, so to speak, when they bring up this debate. But at the same time, I think you could give Kobe his flowers, but also give Bam his flowers, because Bam Adebayo is not known as a three-point shooter, and he just got hot. He was knocking down everything. Everything was going in, and ones, mid-ranges, drives to the rack. But when do we, as NBA fans, start to place the blame on some of this tomfoolery on the teams that have no interest in winning? Like the Wizards have no interest in winning. I give Spo the credit for calling them out, but man, it was just a perfect storm. It lined up like perfect for something like this to happen. And it just so happens that the Wizards were the ones that he did it against. And that's just how it goes.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that because it makes me think back to earlier this season when the Miami Heat were playing at home and they played the Utah Jazz, who the Jazz were leading going into the fourth quarter, and then they benched Lowry Markkanen. They also benched a couple other players. I believe Walker Kessler was another one of them. I remember specifically that Lowry Markkanen was one of the players who got benched, and it's because I'm probably one of his biggest fans. He's the finisher. I am of Finnish descent from Finland. He's the first guy. Like, he's not the first Finnish NBA player, but he's the first one to actually make a huge impact. And so shout out to Lowry Markkanen. But I remember that game specifically because he was benched for the entire fourth quarter, and the Jazz still won that game in Miami. And then Bam Adebayo was the guy in the post-game press conference saying, "We lost to a team that's trying to lose. We have to find a way to beat a team that's trying to lose." And so for you to mention the Wizards in that context, I just find it so ironic because they went from that to this, and now he's got 83 points. I guess they found a way to beat a team that's trying to lose.
Well, they weren't going to lose. That's for damn sure. They made clear of that. They made sure. I want to, if you can, go to Smooth's comment here because I would have had a different feeling if he would have subbed himself out at 80 points. No one's doing that, Smooth. I love the engagement, but no, if I got 80 and I know I'm 3 points away, I'm doing whatever I can. But also the randomness of it, that it's Bam and it's not somebody like that's a premier scorer. That is just a chef's kiss right there.
Yeah, shout out to Smooth, who's always tuning in to the podcast. We appreciate you. That's Kevin's dad, and so we appreciate you engaging. As he also said, it was a little suspect. Analytics have gotten out of control. And to wrap this segment, I want to mention a statistic that I saw that I thought was quite interesting because you look at so Devin Booker, he scored 70 points. How many points did he score in the next game? 23 points. Luka Doncic went from 73 to 28. Kobe, 81 to 30. Bam went from 83 to 21. But Will is just out of this world. He was out there dominating. I forget what the slight is always called. What do you remember what the white men in the 50s were like referred to?
Goons.
Well, yeah, I mean, Bomani Jones always references like
cab drivers and like mailmen.
Yeah, there you go. The mailmen. That's what I was thinking of. For some reason in my head, I thought milkmen, but yes, mailmen. Because Bomani Jones, JJ Redick, they will always shit on the past and like who Wilt Chamberlain was competing against, but still, Wilt went from 100 to 58. So the drop off was not very significant between those two games. It's crazy.
When you're 7'1", 7'2", I don't care who you are. I mean, you could be like some of the most adequate NBA players in the world. You can't defend a guy 7'2" that can jump like 40 inches and runs like a 4.34. I mean, they never clocked him, but I'm sure Wilt wasn't like slow. He was on the track team at Kansas. That just genetics will take over in sports sometimes. It happens that way.
Yeah, exactly.